The Tuesday rain hammered down on the city, turning the downtown financial district into a river of red and yellow lights. Ryan Miller crossed the mirrored lobby of the Almeida Investments holding with his daughter, Isabella, in his arms, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. The 6-year-old girl was fast asleep, oblivious to the storm outside and the one brewing inside her father's chest. Her unicorn backpack swung against his ribs with every hurried step toward the elevators. It was almost 11 at night, and Ryan had only 7 hours ahead of him. 7 hours to deliver. A report that would normally take 3 days of intense work. 7 hours that could mean the difference between keeping Isabella's health insurance or seeing it canceled, between paying her private school tuition or having to pull her out mid-semester. The elevator ascended silently to the 23rd floor. Ryan looked at his distorted reflection in the polished metal and barely recognized the man staring back. Deep, dark circles under his eyes, messy hair, his tie hanging crookedly around his neck like a loose rope. When had he become this exhausted version of himself? Maybe the day Camilla left, 2 years ago, leaving behind only a letter and a deafening silence. Maybe when his father passed away 6 months later, taking with him the only support system Ryan had left. Or perhaps it had been a gradual process, so slow that he didn't even notice when he stopped being Ryan Miller, the man who dreamed of writing novels, and became just the desperate employee trying to survive. The office was shrouded in gloom, with only a few emergency lights flickering in the empty hallways. Ryan walked to his workstation, his steps muffled by the gray carpet, and settled Isabella into the ergonomic chair next to his. He took off his soaked blazer and covered his daughter carefully, adjusting the unicorn backpack as a makeshift pillow. Isabella mumbled something in her sleep, a fragment of a dream Ryan couldn't decipher. He ran his hand through her brown hair, so much like Camilla's, and felt a lump in his throat. "It's going to be okay, my princess. Daddy promises everything will work out." The words came out as a whisper, but they sounded hollow even to his own ears. How many promises had he made that he couldn't keep? The promise to take her to the zoo last Sunday, the promise to make pancakes for breakfast, the promise that they would never have to sleep at the office again. Ryan turned on the 3 monitors and the bluish glow illuminated his tired face. The complex financial restructuring report stared back at him like a monster of numbers and charts. 240 pages of feasibility analysis, cash flow projections, scenario modeling, and everything needed to be flawless by 6 in the morning. His fingers began to fly over the keyboard, but his mind was divided. Half of it focused on the endless spreadsheets, the other half listening to Isabella's soft breathing, making sure she was still sleeping peacefully. 2 hours passed in a blur of caffeine and forced concentration when Ryan heard the sound. A sound that made his blood run cold, the unmistakable click-clack of high heels on the marble corridor. At this hour of the morning, it could only be one person. Marina Almeida emerged from the darkness like an apparition. The holding company's CEO was 32, but she carried the demeanor of someone who had commanded empires for decades. Black hair pulled back in an impeccable bun, a perfectly tailored gray suit, an expression as cold as the air conditioning blowing from the ceiling. She was the 3rd generation of the Almeida family to run the financial conglomerate, and she carried the legacy with the seriousness of a sacred mission. Miller. Her voice cut through the silence like a sharp blade. Ryan instinctively stood up, nearly knocking over his empty coffee cup. "Ms. Almeida, I didn't expect you to come in person to check." Marina walked up to his workstation, her eyes scanning the data-filled screens. She didn't say anything for long seconds, just analyzed him with that penetrating gaze that made the most seasoned executives tremble. "The deadline is 6. I hope you are aware of the consequences if you fail to meet it." "I am aware. I also need you to include the comparative analysis with the 3 main competitors in the sector. Data from the last 5 years. Everything tabulated and with trend charts." Ryan felt his stomach churn. That would add at least 2 more hours to the work. 2 hours he didn't have. "Ma'am, that data is in external systems that only grant access during business hours. I can't access it now." Marina slowly turned her face toward him. For the first time, Ryan noticed that she looked tired too. There was an almost imperceptible shadow under her eyes, a tension in her jawline. But her expression remained implacable. Then improvise. Use projections. Use well-founded estimates, but deliver it. That's when it happened. Marina followed Ryan's gaze, and her eyes landed on Isabella, still sleeping wrapped in the damp blazer. For a fraction of a second, something shifted in her face, a softness that lasted less than a blink before being replaced by the usual mask of ice. 6 in the morning, Miller. Don't disappoint me. She turned and walked back into the corridor, the sound of her heels echoing until they completely disappeared. Ryan remained standing, trembling slightly, unsure if it was from anger, exhaustion, or fear. Probably all three. He sat back down and looked at the screen. 4:20 in the morning. Less than 2 hours. His fingers returned to the keyboard, but now with a frantic urgency. Numbers danced before his eyes, letters blurred. He blinked hard, trying to maintain focus. Isabella stirred in the chair, slowly opening her eyes. "Daddy?" His daughter's sleepy voice broke Ryan's heart into 1,000 pieces. "We're still working, sweetie. Sleep a little longer. I'm thirsty." Ryan looked desperately at the clock. Every minute counted, but she was his daughter. He got up and grabbed the water bottle from her backpack, helping her drink. "Just a little longer and we'll go home, okay? I promise we'll do something special tomorrow. You always promise, Dad." The words came out without malice, just an innocent observation. But they hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. Isabella closed her eyes again, snuggling back into the damp blazer. Ryan returned to work with burning eyes. He didn't know if it was from fatigue or unshed tears. He typed frantically, improvising analyses, cross-referencing data from memory, using all his 10 years of experience in the financial market to fill the gaps Marina had created with her impossible demands. When the clock struck 5:45, Ryan hit send. The report went through the internal system, 260 pages of work condensed into one hellish night. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, his whole body aching as if he'd been beaten. The sun was beginning to rise outside, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Ryan looked out the panoramic window and wondered when the last time he had truly stopped to watch the sunrise was. When was the last time he had done something other than survive? Isabella woke up with the first rays of sun touching her face. She rubbed her eyes and smiled at her father, that smile that always made everything worthwhile. "Are we going home now, Daddy?" "We are, Princess. Let's go home." Ryan picked up his daughter, feeling every muscle protest. He walked past the empty reception, entered the elevator, and descended back into the real world. But he knew this wasn't over. It was just the beginning. The following week turned Ryan's life into a waking nightmare. Marina Almeida had liked the report. There were no compliments, of course, just a brief email at 8 that Wednesday morning with 2 words, "acceptable work." But the price of that acceptance was too high. Meetings began to multiply like weeds. Monday at 6 in the morning, portfolio analysis. Tuesday at 10 at night, strategy review. Wednesday before dawn, teleconference with investors from Hong Kong. Ryan could barely remember what day it was, the hours merging into a shapeless mass of numbers, charts, and Marina's cold voice echoing in his ears. Isabella started living in the corridors of the Almeida holding. Ryan improvised an impossible routine. He picked up his daughter from school at 5 in the afternoon, brought her to the office, let her do homework in the empty conference room while he worked late into the night. The girl ate snacks from the vending machine, drank juice boxes, and drew on company letterhead while executives rushed past, avoiding looking at the child who shouldn't have been there. Co-workers watched in silence. Marcus, who had shared an office with Ryan for 5 years, started looking away when they crossed paths in the hallway. Sarah from accounting offered help once, but Ryan refused with a tired smile that looked more like a grimace. Pride, fear, or simply too much exhaustion to accept kindness, he no longer knew. On Thursday of the second week, Ryan was in the break room preparing his 3rd coffee of the night when he saw his reflection in the window glass. The shock was genuine. Who was that skeletal man with deep dark circles and trembling hands? He had lost at least 10 pounds. His pants were loose at the waist, held up only by the belt tightened to the maximum. His shirt, once snug on his shoulders, now seemed 2 sizes too big. "Miller, I need to speak with you." Marina appeared behind him without making a sound. Ryan turned too quickly, and dizziness almost knocked him down. He held onto the counter. "Yes, ma'am. Tomorrow is the presentation for the board of directors. I want you to prepare the slides by 9 in the morning. 50 slides, minimum. Comparative data, quarterly projections, and detailed risk analysis." Ryan looked at the clock on the wall. It was 10 o'clock on Thursday night. Tomorrow was Friday. Isabella's school fair was at 2 in the afternoon. He had promised he would be there. He had promised, sworn, put his hand on his heart, and looked into his daughter's eyes. "Ms. Almeida, tomorrow I need to leave early. It's an unavoidable commitment with my daughter." Marina stared at him with those dark eyes that revealed nothing. "We all have commitments, Miller. The difference is knowing how to prioritize what really matters." She left the break room before he could answer. Ryan stood still, holding the coffee cup so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He felt his stomach churn, unsure if it was from hunger or nausea. He couldn't remember the last time he had eaten a real meal. He returned to his station where Isabella was sleeping wrapped in a blanket Ryan had brought from home. The unicorn backpack was tossed on the floor beside her, and on the desk, a drawing she had made earlier. 2 stick figures holding hands, one big and one small, both smiling under a bright yellow sun. In the upper corner, written in crooked letters, "Me and Daddy at the fair." Ryan sat heavily in the chair and buried his face in his hands. He didn't cry. He had no more tears, just an emptiness that consumed everything inside. He worked all night. When morning came, the 50 slides were ready. Perfect, impeccable, and he was completely destroyed. Isabella woke up at 7, excited about the fair. She had brought her red and white checkered dress in her backpack, along with the straw hat decorated with crepe paper flowers she had made in art class. She talked non-stop about the dance she had rehearsed, about the candy booths, about how she wanted her father to see when she fished a plastic fish from the ball pit. Ryan couldn't look at her. Every word was a stab. "Isa, my love, I need to talk to you." The girl stopped talking and looked at him with those huge brown eyes, already knowing what was coming. "You're not going, are you, Dad?" "Princess, I really wanted to, but the work. You always say work is important. It is important. It's what pays for our house, your school, your food. But am I not important too?" The question came out so softly that Ryan barely heard it, but he did hear it, and every syllable pierced his chest like shards of glass. "You are the most important thing in the world, Isabella. You are everything to me. Then why do you never choose to be with me?" Ryan had no answer. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Isabella picked up the straw hat, held it against her chest with both hands, and nodded slowly as if she had made a silent decision. "It's okay, Dad. I understand." But she didn't understand. How could she? She was 6 years old. And Ryan knew that moment would be etched in her memory forever. One more among so many others where her father was absent. The presentation was a success. The board members applauded. Marina gave a discreet nod of approval, and Ryan received congratulations from executives who barely knew his name. He smiled, thanked them, made all the necessary bows. Inside, he was dying. It was 2:15 in the afternoon when he finally managed to leave the office. The fair had already started 15 minutes ago. Ryan drove like a maniac through the streets, swerving around buses, honking, at pedestrians running yellow lights. He arrived at the school at 2:35. He ran through the courtyard decorated with colorful flags, desperately searching among the costumed children. He found Isabella sitting alone on a bench, still holding the straw hat. She wasn't crying. She was just looking at the ground, swinging her legs that didn't reach the floor. "Isa, I'm sorry, my love. Daddy is here now." Isabella lifted her head. There was no anger on her face. There was something worse. Resignation. That same resignation Ryan saw in the mirror when he looked at himself in the morning. "The presentation is over, Dad." I danced alone. Miss Carla stood next to me. "I'm so sorry, Princess. I tried." "It's okay. I already knew you wouldn't make it." The words came without accusation, just as facts. And that hurt 1,000 times more than any scream would. Ryan knelt in front of his daughter and held her small hands. "I promise I'll do better. I promise I'll find a way." Isabella just smiled, that sad smile of someone who has heard many broken promises. "It's okay, Daddy. Shall we go home?" Ryan hugged his daughter tightly, feeling the straw hat crumple between them. And there, in the middle of the schoolyard, surrounded by happy children and present parents, he finally understood. He was losing the most precious thing he had, and the worst part was that he didn't know how to stop it. The third week began with Ryan reviewing financial documents for the merger the Almeida holding planned with a technology company. There were piles and piles of papers, contracts, balance sheets, and profit projections. Marina had been clear. Every comma needed to be checked, every number validated. The meeting with the Japanese investors was scheduled for Thursday, and there would be no room for error. Ryan worked mechanically, his eyes scanning line after line of data. Isabella was in the adjacent conference room, watching cartoons on the tablet he had bought on his credit card, paid in 12 installments. Guilt was a constant weight on his chest, but at least she was entertained. It was on Tuesday night, past midnight, that Ryan saw something strange, a number that didn't add up. He went back a few pages, checked again, his brow furrowed. That couldn't be right. He grabbed the calculator and redid the calculations manually. The result confirmed his suspicion. There was a serious error in the economic feasibility report. Not a small, negligible error. It was an error of almost $4 million in the cash flow projection. An error that, if not corrected, could completely compromise the negotiation. What shocked Ryan most was realizing where the document had come from. The digital signature in the footer was unmistakable. Marina Almeida, CEO. She herself had approved those numbers, and they were wrong. Ryan was paralyzed for long minutes, staring at the computer screen as if it could give him answers. His mind worked at maximum speed. He could simply ignore it. It wasn't his responsibility to check the CEO's work. No one expected him to find flaws in the material she herself had prepared. He could pretend he saw nothing and move on. But then, his father's voice echoed in his memory. Henry Miller had been a simple man, an accountant at a small construction company. He never got rich, never had power, but he had principles worth more than any fortune. Ryan remembered the last serious conversation they had, 6 months before his father passed away forever, overcome by a disease that consumed his body, but never his dignity. "Ryan, my son, you can lose many things in life. You can lose money, you can lose opportunities, but never lose your integrity. Because the day you lose that, you lose who you are." Ryan took a deep breath. He grabbed a notepad and began to redo all the calculations. He worked for 3 straight hours, checking every variable, every premise, every discount rate. When he finished, he had definitive proof in his hands. The error was real and had been propagated throughout the report. If that merger were approved based on those numbers, the company could suffer huge losses. He corrected everything silently. He didn't email Marina, he didn't make a fuss. He just adjusted the data, redid the projections, and saved an updated version of the document. Then, he created a technical note explaining the changes, but without pointing fingers. Just the facts, cold and objective. It was 4 a.m. when Ryan finally saved everything and leaned back in his chair. He was exhausted, but there was a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't exactly pride, it was relief. Relief at having done the right thing, even if no one ever knew or acknowledged it. Isabella woke up and came to him, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, can we go home now?" "Yes, my love. Let's go home." On the way, Isabella fell asleep in the back seat of the car. Ryan looked in the rearview mirror and saw his daughter curled up, hugging her unicorn backpack. She looked so small, so fragile, and he felt like the worst father in the world. Thursday arrived faster than Ryan would have liked. The meeting with the Japanese investors was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon in the main conference room. Ryan wouldn't be present. He was just the analyst who did the behind-the-scenes work. The presentations were Marina and the director's territory. But at 2:40, his phone rang. It was Marina's secretary. "Mr. Miller, Ms. Almeida needs you to come to the conference room immediately." Ryan felt his heart race. He ran up the 3 flights of stairs, not wanting to wait for the elevator. When he reached the room, he was breathless. Marina was standing near the projection screen, surrounded by 6 Japanese executives in dark suits and 3 holding directors. The atmosphere was tense. "Miller, can you explain this?" Marina pointed to the projector where an open spreadsheet was displayed. Ryan recognized it immediately. It was the corrected version of the report. Someone had noticed the discrepancies with the previous version. "I found some errors in the original calculations and made the necessary corrections, ma'am." "Errors?" Marina's voice was dangerously low. "Yes. There were inconsistencies in the cash flow projection that could compromise the feasibility analysis. I redid the calculations based on the correct premises, and the numbers changed significantly." One of the Japanese investors, a gray-haired man with impeccable posture, stepped forward. "Are you saying the original analysis was incorrect?" Ryan looked at Marina. For the first time, he saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't exactly anger. Maybe it was fear or vulnerability. She was exposed there, in front of people who had the power to make or break multi-million-dollar deals. And Ryan had the power to expose her further or protect her. It was incomplete. Some important variables were missing that only became evident when I analyzed it more deeply. I took the responsibility of making the necessary adjustments to ensure we made decisions based on the most accurate data possible. It wasn't a lie. It wasn't the complete truth either. It was a fine line Ryan chose to walk. The Japanese investor nodded slowly, impressed. "Very well. This is the kind of rigor we expect from our partners." Marina remained silent, but her eyes didn't leave Ryan. There was something different in that look now. No longer the cold disdain from before. It was something Ryan couldn't fully decipher. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. Ryan participated, answering technical questions, explaining methodologies, presenting alternative scenarios. The investors took constant notes, and at the end, the leader of the Japanese delegation shook Ryan's hand firmly. "You have a competent team, Ms. Almeida." This young man saved this negotiation. When everyone left, Ryan was alone in the room with Marina. The silence was deafening. She walked to the panoramic window and stood with her back to him for long minutes. "Why did you do that?" Ryan didn't need to ask what she meant. It was the right thing to do. "You could have exposed me. You could have made it clear that the mistake was mine. I could have, but that wouldn't benefit anyone. The important thing was to fix the problem, not point fingers." Marina turned around. For the first time since Ryan had known her, she didn't look like the ruthless executive. She looked like just a tired person, scared perhaps, trying to carry too heavy a burden alone. "I misjudged you, Miller." The words came out low, almost inaudible. "Everyone judges everyone, Ms. Almeida. It's part of the job. You could have gotten revenge on me after everything I put you through. The late nights, the pressure, your daughter." Marina stopped, as if she realized she was saying too much. "I just did my job, like I always do." "No, you did more than that. You had integrity when it would have been easier not to." Ryan didn't know what to say. He remained silent, waiting. "You can go home, Miller, and tomorrow you don't need to come in. Take the day off. Spend it with your daughter." Marina looked back out the window, ending the conversation. Ryan left the room with mixed feelings. Something had changed that afternoon. He didn't know exactly what, but he felt that a delicate balance had been altered. When he got home that night, Isabella was already asleep. Ryan went into her room and sat on the edge of the bed, watching his daughter breathe softly. He ran his hand through her hair carefully so as not to wake her. Maybe things will get better now, Princess. Maybe. But deep down, Ryan knew there was still a long way to go. The day off Marina had granted was just that. One day. The following Monday, everything returned to the frantic pace of before. But something had subtly changed. Meetings continued to happen at impossible hours, but Marina started asking if Ryan needed help. She didn't reduce the demands, but she began to look him in. The eyes when she spoke, as if she finally saw him as a person and not just an employee. But Ryan's body was already taking its toll. 3 weeks of irregular sleep, poor diet, and constant stress don't go unpunished. He felt frequent headaches, dizziness when getting up too fast, and his heart seemed to race for no apparent reason. He ignored all the signs. He didn't have time to be sick. He didn't have the luxury of faltering. On Wednesday, during a video conference with European investors, Ryan felt the first tightness in his chest. It was as if someone had placed a giant hand around his ribs and squeezed hard. He took a deep breath, blinked hard, tried to focus on the numbers on the screen. The pain passed after a few seconds. Probably just fatigue, he thought. On Thursday, it happened again. This time during lunch, which he wasn't even really eating, just pretending to chew a sandwich while reading emails on his phone. His vision darkened at the edges and he had to lean on the table. Marcus, his office mate, asked if he was okay. Ryan smiled and said yes, it was just hunger. Lie. Friday was the day everything fell apart. Ryan had to submit a compliance report by 6 in the evening. It was a crucial document, full of regulations and standards that needed to be strictly followed. He worked focused all morning, Isabella sitting beside him, drawing in an old notebook he had bought at the corner stationery store. At 5:40, 20 minutes early, Ryan finalized the document. He clicked send and leaned back in his chair with a sigh of relief. He had done it. Once again, against all odds, he had met the deadline. That's when the pain returned. But this time it was different. It wasn't just a squeeze. It was like lightning had shot through his chest, down his left arm, up to his jaw. The air fled his lungs. The room spun violently. "Daddy?" Isabella's voice sounded distant, muffled, as if she were on the other side of a tunnel. Ryan tried to stand up. His legs wouldn't obey. He stumbled forward, tried to lean on the desk, but his arms were jelly. The floor rushed toward him very quickly. The last thing Ryan saw before complete darkness was Isabella's terrified face screaming for help. When he woke up, he was lying in the building lobby. Several people were clustered around him. The fluorescent light from the ceiling was too bright, hurting his eyes. Someone was talking about calling an ambulance. Another voice said to give him space, let him breathe. Ryan tried to focus. His head was throbbing. He slowly turned to the side and saw something that took his brain a few seconds to fully process. Marina Almeida was kneeling on the cold marble floor of the lobby. The knee of her expensive tailored pants was pressed against the cold tile. She was holding Isabella's 2 small hands, who was sobbing convulsively. And Marina was talking to her softly, in a voice Ryan had never heard before. A soft, comforting human voice. "It's okay, sweetie. Your daddy is going to be fine, I promise. I'll take care of everything, do you hear? I'll take care of your daddy and you. I promise." Isabella was sobbing, trying to break free to run to Ryan, but Marina held her with gentle firmness, preventing the girl from getting hurt or hindering those who were trying to help. "I need my daddy. I need him. I know. My love, I know. But I need you to be very brave now, okay? Your daddy needs you to be strong." Ryan tried to speak, but his voice came out as a hoarse murmur. Marina looked at him, and her eyes were different, red, moist. For the first time, Ryan saw tears in the eyes of the ice woman. The ambulance arrived 12 minutes later. Paramedics dressed in blue moved with professional efficiency, asking questions Ryan could barely answer. Yes, he felt chest pain. Yes, he was tired. Yes, he hadn't eaten properly for weeks. Yes, he slept little. Yes, he was under a lot of stress. Isabella tried to climb into the ambulance with him, but it wasn't allowed. She screamed, struggled, cried like Ryan had never seen. It broke his heart into 1,000 pieces to be so close and unable to hug her, unable to say that everything was okay. It was Marina who resolved the situation. She picked up Isabella, even with the girl resisting, and spoke firmly but affectionately. "You'll come with me in my car, and we'll follow the ambulance. You'll be able to see your dad at the hospital, but I need you to trust me now." Something in Marina's tone calmed Isabella. The girl nodded, still sobbing, and clung to the executive's neck as if she were her only salvation. Ryan spent 2 days in the hospital. The diagnosis was clear and frightening: severe burnout accompanied by the onset of cardiac arrhythmia. The doctor, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, was straight to the point. "Mr. Miller, your body is collapsing. If you continue at this pace, you'll be back here in 6 months. And next time, you might not be so lucky. You need to drastically reduce stress, improve your diet, sleep at least 7 hours a night, and get psychological counseling." Ryan almost laughed. Reduce stress. As if it were a choice. As if he could simply decide not to worry about paying the bills, not to worry about keeping his job, not to worry about giving Isabella a decent life. "Doctor, you don't understand. I don't have a choice. We all have choices, Mr. Miller. The question is what price we are willing to pay for them." Ryan was discharged on Saturday afternoon with a bag full of medications and recommendations that seemed impossible to follow. When he got home, exhausted, he found Isabella watching cartoons in the living room. She ran to him and hugged him so tightly that Ryan thought he might pass out again. "I thought I was going to lose you, Daddy." "Never, Princess. Daddy isn't going anywhere." But it was a lie. He was going somewhere. He was heading to the bottom of a bottomless pit, and he didn't know how to stop the fall. It was in the early hours of Saturday night into Sunday morning that the doorbell rang. Ryan was awake, unable to sleep despite the medication. Isabella was sleeping, in the next room. He went to the door, confused about who would be there at that hour. Marina Almeida was on the other side, but it wasn't the Marina he knew. She was without makeup, without high heels, wearing jeans and a simple blouse. Her hair was loose, falling over her shoulders. She held a large bag in her hands. "May I come in?" Ryan was too stunned to do anything but step aside and let her pass. Marina entered the small 2-bedroom apartment, looking around with discreet curiosity. She placed the bag on the coffee table. "I brought some things. Real food, soup, fruits, healthy stuff. And this." She took a large blue and pink plush unicorn out of the bag, with sparkling eyes and a soft mane. "I saw Isabella looking at this toy in a store window near the office last week. She stood there for almost 5 minutes before you called her. I thought she might like to have it." Ryan looked at the unicorn, then at Marina, then back at the unicorn. He couldn't process what was happening. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Marina sat on the worn sofa and sighed. For the first time, Ryan saw the weight she carried. He saw the fine wrinkles around her eyes, the tension in her shoulder line, the exhaustion she hid so well behind the mask of efficiency. "Because I was a tyrant. Because I almost killed you with my insane demands. Because I used my power to crush someone who didn't deserve it. And because for the first time in years, someone showed me what true integrity means." Ryan sat down next to her, still holding the plush unicorn. "You were just doing your job." "No. I was taking out all my own failures and fears on you. I took over the company at 28 when my father had a serious health issue and was forced to step down. I wasn't ready. No one expected me to be capable. So I hardened. I became this person I no longer recognize when I look in the mirror. And in the process, I forgot that the people around me are human. That they have families. They have limits. They have lives beyond work." The words came out in a torrent, as if Marina had kept it inside her for years and finally found a breach to Release everything. I am so sorry, Ryan. I truly am. It was the first time she had used his first name, and there were tears streaming down her face now, silent but genuine. Ryan didn't know what to say. He sat there, holding the plush unicorn as if it were a life raft, trying to understand how his life had reached that surreal point. On Sunday morning, Isabella woke up and found Marina Almeida sitting at the kitchen table having coffee with her father. The girl stopped at the door, rubbing her eyes, unsure if she was still dreaming. Marina smiled at her, a genuine, warm smile that lit up her entire face. "Good morning, Isabella. I brought something for you." Marina pointed to the sofa where the giant unicorn was sitting, as if waiting for its owner. Isabella's eyes widened, and she ran, still in her pajamas, hugging the plush toy with all the strength of her 6 years. "Is this for me? Really?" "It is. I saw you looking at it the other day, and I thought you two should get to know each other better." Isabella hugged the unicorn and then ran to hug Marina with the same intensity. Marina was surprised for a moment, but then returned the embrace, closing her eyes as if she were receiving something she didn't know she needed so much. On that strange and surreal morning, the three of them had breakfast together. Marina made pancakes, admitting she was a little out of practice, but Isabella declared they were the best pancakes in the world. Ryan watched everything as if he were watching a play, still not entirely convinced that this was real. After Isabella went to play in her room with her new unicorn, which she immediately named Star, Marina and Ryan sat on the small apartment balcony. The city stretched out before them, millions of lives happening simultaneously in every lit window. "I need to make some changes. In the company. In myself." Marina looked at the horizon as she spoke. "And I want to start with you." Ryan waited, letting her continue. "I'm going to create a new position. Director of Strategic Analysis, with its own team, decision autonomy, and a real work schedule, not these crazy late-night hours I imposed. The salary will be double what you earn now, and there will be a special support program for employees who are single parents, corporate daycare, flexible hours, remote work when necessary. Marina, I can't accept that. People will say it's favoritism. They'll say horrible things." Marina finally looked at him, and there was a fierce determination in her eyes. "Let them talk. I spent the last 4 years of my life worrying about what people would say, worried about proving I deserved to be where I am. And in the process, I became a monster. I don't care about gossip anymore. I care about doing what is right. And you think giving me a promotion is doing what is right? I think recognizing competence and integrity is doing what is right. You saved a multi-million-dollar merger. You had the chance to humiliate me and chose not to. You worked beyond any reasonable human limit. If that doesn't deserve recognition, then I don't know what does." Ryan was silent, processing. Part of him wanted to accept immediately. It meant financial security. It meant time with Isabella. It meant breathing again. But another part was afraid. Afraid that it was too good to be true. Afraid that it could end as quickly as it began. I know this isn't just temporary guilt. How do I know that in a month you won't go back to being who you were?" Marina smiled sadly. "I don't know. You don't know. But I give you my word that I will try. And if I start slipping back into that person, I want you to tell me. I want you to hold up a mirror so I can see the monster before it takes over again. We have a deal then." They shook hands, but then Marina pulled Raphael into a hug. It was brief, but genuine. And when they separated, both had tears in their eyes. The following weeks brought changes that no one at Almeida Holdings expected. Marina announced a complete restructuring of human resources policies. She implemented mandatory limits on overtime hours, prohibited meetings after 7 in the evening except in genuine emergencies, and created a mental wellness program with therapists available free of charge to all employees. The older executives complained. They said the company would lose competitiveness, that it was turning into a social club, that Marina was getting soft. She listened to all the criticism patiently and then did what she thought was right anyway. Some directors resigned. Marina accepted their departures without batting an eye. Anyone who wants to build an empire on the suffering of others doesn't deserve a place here, she stated in a tense board meeting. Raphael, now going by the adapted name Ryan, embraced his new position and, for the first time in years, felt like he could breathe. He assembled a small but competent team, delegated tasks, and worked smarter instead of just working harder. Most importantly, he started picking up his daughter, Isabella, from school every day at 5 o'clock. They ate dinner together. He helped her with homework. They read stories before bed. Life regained its color. Marina, now known as Marissa, started showing up at their apartment occasionally, always with a gift for Isabella, always with some excuse. She brought children's books, educational games, a painting kit, and little by little she became part of their routine. Isabella adored her. She called Marissa Aunt Mari and told her every detail of her day at school. One Saturday, Isabella asked to visit Marissa's apartment. Ryan was nervous. He didn't want to impose, but Marissa was visibly moved by the invitation. They went. The apartment was huge, minimalist, with expensive but cold decor. It looked like a showroom, not a home. Isabella ran through the vast rooms and then declared that the place needed more colors and love. Marissa laughed, a genuine loud laugh that made Ryan realize he had never truly heard her laugh before. "You're right, Isa. You are absolutely right." Isabella took her painting kit from her backpack and asked to draw. Marissa offered a piece of paper, but Isabella shook her head. "No, Aunt Mari. I want to draw on the wall. Can I?" Marissa looked at the immaculate white wall of her living room. It had cost a fortune, designed by an award-winning architect. Then she looked at Isabella with those hopeful, life-filled eyes. "Yes, you can. Draw whatever you want." Isabella drew the three of them, her, Ryan, and Marissa, all holding hands, under a huge rainbow and a smiling sun. When she finished, Marissa stood looking at the drawing for long minutes. "You know what? I think this is the most beautiful thing this apartment has ever had." She had the drawing professionally framed and placed it on the main wall of the living room. Every morning, while having coffee, Marissa looked at that child's drawing and remembered what truly mattered. At the company, the rumors inevitably started. They said Ryan was using his daughter to manipulate Marissa. They said there was something romantic between them, and that's why he had been promoted. They said it was all blackmail, that Ryan knew some compromising secret. Ryan heard the whispers in the hallway, saw the looks, felt the weight of the speculation. Sometimes he almost went to Marissa to resign, to end all the confusion, but she always knew when he was thinking about it. Don't let small minds determine your life, Ryan. You deserve to be where you are. And if anyone dares to say anything, you tell me. Or better yet, you tell them exactly who you are and what you're worth. The trust between them grew every day. Ryan found himself telling Marissa things he had never told anyone. About Camilla's departure, about how he felt inadequate and abandoned, about the loss of his father and how he still missed his guidance, about his fears of not being a good enough father to Isabella. Marissa also opened up. She talked about the impossible pressure of taking over. The company so young. About how her own father, even healthy again, demanded constant perfection. About relationships destroyed because she couldn't separate work from personal life. About the loneliness of being at the top and having no one to share victories or failures with. It wasn't romance, at least not yet. It was something deeper. It was mutual recognition. It was seeing in the other person someone who understood, who truly saw beyond the masks we all wear to survive. And then came that Monday. The Monday that would change everything again. Ryan was in a meeting when his phone vibrated insistently. It was the school. His heart pounded. He answered even with everyone watching. "Mr. Mendez, there's been an incident. Someone came to pick up Isabella claiming to be family, but they weren't on the authorized list. The person presented documents and seemed to know details about the girl. Our receptionist, who is new, allowed it. By the time we realized the mistake, It was too late. The girl is no longer here. The phone slipped from Ryan's hands. His entire world collapsed in a fraction of a second. The panic that seized Ryan was absolute and paralyzing. His brain simply stopped working for a few seconds as he tried to process the words he had just heard. Isabella had been taken. His daughter. His reason for existing. She was gone. Marissa was in the meeting too, and immediately realized something was terribly wrong. She saw the color drain from Ryan's face, saw his hands tremble, saw the phone fall to the floor. In 2 seconds, she was by his side. What happened? Ryan couldn't speak. He just shook his head, trying to form words that wouldn't come out. Marissa picked up the phone and spoke directly to the school principal, asking precise and objective questions. When she hung up, her face was serious, but controlled. "We will find her. I promise you we will find her." Marissa left the conference room with Ryan stumbling behind her in a state of shock. She was already calling someone, her voice firm and authoritative. "Alberto, I need you now. Mobilize the entire security team. Access to traffic cameras in the area of the Maplewood Elementary School in the city. I want tracking of all vehicles that left there between 3 and 3:30 this afternoon, and put me in direct contact with Captain Miller at the precinct. Now." Ryan watched Marissa coordinate everything like a general on a battlefield. She made 6 more calls in sequence. She activated lawyers, called a private investigator, mobilized resources Ryan didn't even know existed. Meanwhile, she guided Ryan to her car and drove at high speed to the nearest police station to the school. The police report was filed urgently. The detective, who clearly knew Marissa, treated the case with maximum priority. He put a team on it immediately. He requested footage from neighborhood security cameras. He issued alerts. Ryan was sitting on a hard, plastic chair, his head in his hands, trying to breathe. Every minute that passed was an eternity. Where was Isabella now? Was she scared? Was she crying? Was she calling for him? Marissa knelt in front of him and held his hands firmly. "Look at me, Ryan. Look at me." He lifted his face. Tears were streaming down uncontrollably. "We are going to find her. I have all my resources working on this. I have the best investigators in the city. I have contacts on every corner of this town. We will bring her back. You need to trust me. And I do trust you. But what if..." No. There is no what if. There is only when. When we find her, not if. 2 hours passed like 2 centuries. Ryan gave all the information he could. He described Isabella in details that tore at his heart. The unicorn backpack, the blue and white uniform, the Velcro shoes she had chosen because they were easier to put on herself. Every detail was a stab. Then Marissa's private investigator, a 50-year-old man with a face that had seen everything, entered the precinct with information. We identified the vehicle, a silver Civic, license plate such and such, registered in the name of Lucille Martin. I did a quick search. She is a cousin of Camila Mendez. The information matched something the school principal mentioned. The woman claimed to be the child's aunt. Ryan felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Lucille. He barely remembered her. He had seen the woman maybe 3 times in his life, always at brief, awkward family gatherings with Camilla's side of the family. Why would she take Isabella? The investigator consulted his notes. According to records, she has made several social media posts in recent months about children needing to be saved from neglectful environments. It seems she developed a kind of fixation. We have her address. It's in the suburbs. Marissa was already on her feet. Let's go. The detective intervened. Ms. Almeida, it's better to let the police... With all due respect, detective, that girl calls me aunt, and I'm not going to sit here waiting while she's scared somewhere. Your team can follow us, but I'm going now. She grabbed Ryan by the arm and pulled him out of the precinct. They got into her car, and Marissa drove like she was in a movie police chase. Ryan could barely breathe properly. His hands gripped the seatbelt so tightly his knuckles were white. "It's going to be okay," Marissa repeated. "It's going to be okay." The address was an old apartment building in a residential neighborhood. When they arrived, 2 police cars were already parked outside. Marissa didn't wait. She ran up the stairs, Ryan right behind her. They reached the 3rd floor at the exact moment 2 officers were coming out of an apartment carrying Isabella in their arms. "Daddy!" The girl's scream echoed down the hallway. Ryan ran and took his daughter, hugging her so tightly that Isabella let out a small grunt of surprise. He buried his face in her hair, smelling the strawberry children's shampoo, feeling her tiny heart beating against his chest. "It's okay, princess. Daddy's here. It's all okay now." Isabella cried compulsively, clinging to her father's neck as if she would never let go. Marissa stood beside them, a hand on Ryan's shoulder, tears streaming freely down her face. She didn't try to hide them. Lucille was led out of the apartment in handcuffs, saying disconnected things about saving the child, about inadequate environments, about doing what was right. The police took her away while she continued rambling. Ryan later heard she would be referred for psychiatric evaluation. Apparently, she had developed a delusional disorder whose severity the family hadn't realized. But at that moment, Ryan didn't care about explanations. He only cared about the weight of Isabella in his arms, the certainty that she was safe, that she was back. Marissa drove them home. She stayed with them the rest of the night. She made hot chocolate. She put on a movie Isabella liked. She sat next to them on the couch while the girl, exhausted from crying and still trembling, finally fell asleep between her father and Aunt Marie. Ryan looked at Marissa over Isabella's head. There were not enough words. Nothing could express the gratitude, the relief, the deep connection that had formed between them through that ordeal. "Thank you for everything, for being here, for not giving up, for caring." Marissa smiled, wiping the last tears from her face. "I wasn't just here because I care, Ryan. I was here because you two have become my family, and you protect family." They carried Isabella to her room, still sleeping soundly. Ryan tucked his daughter into bed, covered her with her favorite blanket, the one with stars that glowed in the dark. He adjusted Star the unicorn next to her. He stood there watching for long minutes, making sure she was really breathing, that she was truly safe. When he returned to the living room, Marissa was still there. She was looking at the drawing Isabella had made weeks ago, now framed and hanging on the wall of the small apartment, the 3 of them holding hands, together. "You know what I realized today?" Marissa spoke softly. "When I thought we might lose her, when I saw you completely broken, when I mobilized every resource I had to bring her back, I realized I wasn't just doing it for you. I was doing it for me too. Because at some point in the last few weeks, that incredible girl became an essential part of my life. And so did you." Ryan approached her. They stood there, side by side, looking at the child's drawing that had somehow predicted the future. "I was so scared today. Scared of losing the only thing that truly matters. And then I realized it wasn't just Isabella anymore. You became important too, Marissa. In a way I can't quite explain yet." Marissa turned to face him. "I was horrible to you. I almost destroyed you and your daughter with my blind ambition and my inhumane demands. Why would you forgive me? Why would you let me get close to your lives? Because people change. Because you changed. And because I saw behind the mask you wore. I saw the person who was desperate, scared, trying to prove something to a world that always doubted her. And that person, the real person, is worth knowing." Marissa let out a wet laugh, somewhere between tears and a smile. "How do you always manage to see the best in people?" "Maybe because my dad taught me that everyone is fighting battles we can't see, and that kindness costs less than judgment." They stood in silence for a moment, just existing in the same space, breathing the same air. "Ryan, I don't know if I'm ready for this. For a relationship. For being part of a family. I mess up everything I touch. Marissa, you just moved heaven and earth to save my daughter. You implemented changes in an entire company because you cared about people's well-being. You are trying to be better every day. That's not messing up. That's building. What if I fail? What if I go back to who I was? Then I will remind you of who you can be, and you will do the same for me. Because that's what people who care do. They help each other stay on track. Marissa let out a sob and threw herself into Ryan's arms. He held her as she cried, releasing years of pressure, loneliness, and pretending to be stronger than she really was. When she finally calmed down, she was red-faced and swollen-eyed, but somehow more beautiful than ever. Because she was real. She was human. She was vulnerable. "Can I stay a little longer?" Marissa asked. "I just don't want to be alone tonight." "You can stay as long as you want. Always." They returned to the couch. Marissa curled up next to Ryan, her head resting on his shoulder. He put his arm around her, and there they stayed, while the city outside continued its frantic pace, indifferent to the silent miracle happening in that small apartment. 3 months later, Ryan was at the park with Isabella when he received a message from Marissa. It was a photo. Marissa in front of a building with a sign, the Ryan and Henry Mendez Single Parent Support Center. She had used Ryan's father's name. The message read, "Grand opening next month. Counting on both of you to be here. Because some things can't wait. And some people deserve all the support we can give." Ryan showed the photo to Isabella. "Look, Princess, Aunt Mary did something very special." "She is special, isn't she, Dad?" "She is. Very special. Do you like her?" Ryan looked at his daughter. Her eyes were hopeful, curious, but also careful, as if she was trying to protect her father's heart from another possible disappointment. "I like her a lot, Isa. How about you?" "Me too. I think she makes you genuinely smile, and that makes me happy." Ryan hugged his daughter, his chest tight with emotion. "You know what? I think we finally found our happy ending. Is it like the stories you read to me?" "Even better, Princess. Because it's real." At dinner that night, the three of them were together again. Marissa had brought lasagna that she had tried to make herself. It was a little burnt around the edges, but Isabella declared it the best lasagna in the universe. Ryan agreed, not because of the food, but because of what it represented. Someone trying, someone caring, someone being part of it. After dinner, while Isabella drew at the table, Marissa and Ryan washed the dishes together. It was domestic, simple, ordinary, and precisely because of that, it was extraordinary. "Ryan, can I ask you something? Do you think we're crazy? After everything that happened, the way we started?" Ryan dried his hands and turned to her. "I think the best stories start in the most unlikely places. I think sometimes we need to lose our footing to discover we can fly. And I think we both deserve a chance to be happy. Truly happy." Marissa smiled, that smile that now came easily, illuminating not just her face but the entire room. "Then let's try. Together. Together." They kissed right there in the small kitchen with half-washed dishes, with Isabella drawing rainbows at the table next to them, with life happening in its simplest and most perfect form. And through the window, the city of Los Angeles continued to pulse, millions of stories being written every second. But inside that apartment, one particular story had found its way. A story about two wounded hearts that met at the worst possible time and discovered that sometimes the worst time is exactly when we are ready for the best beginning. Ryan looked around, at Marissa, at Isabella, at the home they had built together. And for the first time in years, he didn't fear tomorrow. He felt hope. He felt love. He felt that he was finally where he was supposed to be. True love, he discovered, wasn't the kind from fairy tales. It was the kind built on recognized mistakes, sincere apologies, and the courage to try again even when everything seems lost. It was the kind that blooms between the cracks, that grows in unlikely terrain, that transforms people and rewrites destinies. And in the end, that was exactly what they had. Not a fairy tale. Something better. Something real. End of story. If Ryan and Marissa's journey touched your heart, know that we have many other stories that celebrate human resilience, the power of new beginnings, and the beauty of love built on true foundations. Each story is a window into real emotions, authentic conflicts, and characters who could be any of us. If you believe it's worth fighting for our dreams, that change is possible, that love can bloom in the most unexpected places, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, have you ever had to choose between your dreams and your responsibilities? What was that like? Your story might inspire someone, because in the end, we are all Ryan and Marissa, seeking belonging, seeking love, seeking redemption. And together we can remind each other that it's worth keeping on trying. We'll see you in the next story.